Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on Django apps. We're going to continue on a Django app this evening. Got a little to-do behind my head so we can keep track of what I'm doing. If you're, I don't know, coming in later, you're checking out the video, here's what we're working on. So we're currently planning to migrate an app that I have, a homeschool application, a scheduling app, from Heroku to DigitalOcean. If you want to find out why, you can go look at the last stream. We're in the middle of this process of doing this. And so there's a bunch of stuff left to do, so let's just jump right into it. I have I've got a Docker image that has a bunch of stuff already done, but it's not complete. And so we need to improve that. Before we do that, I did some stuff off stream to update some settings, so we're going to do that. Last time we talked about switching to environs as the tool for using settings. I explained why I found it better than Django environ, and I did that. I completed the migration offline. So if you want to check out the actual code changes, I did one on stream just to show what it would look like, but the rest of it was kind of boring. So you know, you're welcome to change that up. Johan, I see your question there. Advanced resources that I can recommend after my book. Well, thank you for reading my book. If you did, that's awesome. Hopefully you learned something along the way. Let's see. Advanced stuff. I know, well, shoot, I'm drawing a blank. So if you go to Django chat, there are two guys behind Django chat. There's Will Vincent and Carlton Gibson. And Will is a pretty prolific author, especially in the Django space. I don't know, is it willvincent.com? Something like that. It might be as obvious as that. It is. Hey, how about that? So Will Vincent has some good books here that might be of interest to you. He's got, and now, disclosure, I have not read his books, but I find him to be a trustworthy individual and knowledgeable on Django. So it could be that one of his books could serve you well for understanding Django. There's another book that is a good resource that I have read. I have not read the latest update, but I have found that there's some good thinking in here if you want to think in terms of Django. The Feldroys. So this is Danny and, oh, I feel so bad. I'm blanking out on his partner's name. Audrey. The two of them wrote this book together and have done some good work with Django. So this is maybe another good entry point to learning Django if that's what you're after. So I'm making an assumption, that's probably my bad, that you're looking for more Django stuff. That's not what you're looking for. Let me know, because there's a lot. Web is a big open space, and there's a lot you could learn from more than just Django. I think Django is a great tool, but clearly there are other options out there. So those are two good places for the Django stuff if you want to explore that. Okay, let's get back to, move this, jumping over to that annoyingly. Let's get back to the cloud migration stuff and what we need to change. So I've got the latest changes pulled down. We've got a Docker file that we can look at, and this Docker file right now is focused on the Python aspect of this. It's focused on getting GUnicorn going. It's focused on doing the collect static part, and there's some database migration stuff that we're going to do outside of the image. That will be part of Kamal later, so we're not going to worry about that. So what's left is the bits that are kind of not really Python aspects, actually. So let's talk about my app for a minute. So there's this particular app. Let's clear the screen and look at some stuff. This particular app, the top level, is kind of a mess. And it's a mess because Heroku requires it to be a mess. The way Heroku works is they use build packs, and build packs are ways that kind of prepare your application for being deployed to Heroku system. But build packs don't come with a lot of customization options. They expect files to be in certain places. So what you're seeing here in this mess load of files is a bunch of things. Some of it is configuration. Some of it is actual source code that we care about. Some of it is packages that we care about. But what is confusing about this is it's a mix between Go and JavaScript and Python all in the same kind of space. And that's a requirement from the build pack stuff from Heroku. Ultimately, I want to get to a spot where we can put each of these little things in their own spot and not have to worry about this. But that's going to be something that we'll have to do in transition, because part of this migration is the entire time that I'm migrating from one cloud to the other, I want to be able to continue to deploy to my current site if there's a problem. Actually, that leads me to a good question of like maybe I shouldn't think about that way. One strategy we could do is I'm not working on this app heavily aside from this cloud migration. So maybe what should be done is we should base everything off of a branch, and then like once the migration is done and we've migrated off of Heroku, then we can merge that back to main. All right, so let's think through the benefits, the cost benefit analysis of this. Should we branch and then just like basically say we're forever going to go a different way? If I had a bunch of like changes going at the same time and I needed to be constantly getting them out to my user base, then that might be something that I don't want to do. And the reason for that is like I need to be able to deploy regularly, right? So that would be bad. But if I think of my main branch as like a hotfix only kind of place for now, where I would only update like, if Django had a security issue or something had a security issue and I want to get that out and deployed to Heroku, I think I could do that. But if I decide instead to say, you know what, like I know I'm going to go a different way and I'm going to make my life easier if I just focus on this cloud migration in a separate branch and then merge stuff into that, if I feel like I need to do that, then that might give me a cleaner path here. So maybe like I'm trying to see there's not a lot of downsides in this approach, knowing that this is important that I'm the only developer here, so I don't have to coordinate with anybody. So yeah, I think I want to do that. So that's maybe let's start putting it in. So what's our branch going to be called? I guess we can create a branch and we'll call it well, let's pick the most obvious name, Cloud Migration. So we're gonna start, and now gives us a space to do whatever is best for the cloud migration, knowing that we can keep the Heroku configuration in a working state. Johan, recommendation for boilerplate code. Oh man, there are so many options. Again, I'm making assumptions here about what you want. I'm making assumptions that you're looking for Django boilerplate stuff. That's not right. Let me know. There are a bunch of templates. Let's see, Django X, I think it's called, is going back to Will Vincent. He has a starter. I think that's what he calls it, Django X. So there's one option. Again, I've never actually started from a starter template, so I cannot speak for the quality of these tools. But there's another one. It's not Unicorn. Oh shoot, what's it called? There is another one that is a popular starter project. Django starter project. So Django looks like Will has some pretty good SEO here, but it's not the one I'm thinking of. There's one. So there's other aspects here too that you could pay for. So Django paid starter template. So there's like also a Django cookie cutter thing, but why am I drawing a blank? Pegasus. I think it's called Pegasus. Django Pegasus. Even has the boilerplate. So Pegasus is not, you can see it's got a fairly big price tag maybe, especially if you're in a different part of the world where cost is more of an issue. So it's a trade-off of like how much is your time worth. So the advantage of one of these systems is, or at least what they claim, is that it does a lot of stuff for you that you don't want to have to hook up yourself. So again, I've not done that myself. I cannot speak to how good or bad the experience is, but people do it, and I think they might even have, like, I don't know. I think there are stuff out there that shows other projects that have done that. So you can explore that on your own as you see fit. So Django X or Pegasus or Cookie Cutter Django would all be at least starting points that I've heard of. And I think there are other template projects out there. In fact, the person behind this site, whose name I'm also blanking out on, it's terrible. Who made this? Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to blank on his name. Sorry. But he made a site that is like other templates you can use. And I think he did that to his advantage so that Pegasus would be listed first. There's a, some clear like marketing play there, which is smart, I think. Oh, here it is. Corey Zhu. Corey is the person behind Django Pegasus. So you can go find out if that's going to be the right fit for you. Doesn't like my particular needs and my own opinions have been baked in for a while, so I have my own way. I have had thoughts about like maybe I should make my own starter, but and that's sort of actually what part of this exploration is going to be about. Is like, are there pieces that I've got a couple of SaaS projects of my own? Are the pieces that I can pull out and put into a library that I find to be reusable, and find commonality so that I don't have to. If I have multiple projects that I'm trying to maintain simultaneously, can I just update one place and push it out to both of them? That would be ideal. Okay, so we're going to go down this path where we have now a branch. That's cool. That's a good decision made. We're going to work from this cloud migration thing and put that up there. Do I still not have Hub installed? Dang it. All right, well, we'll push up this PR appropriately later. Yeah, Keel, thanks for joining in. So what I need to do, all right, let's talk a moment about what's next. Or there's a bunch of directions we can go in. Let's pick one. So I've listed here of things that we can have to build in. We can try and tackle these one at a time and just go down the road. I think if we ended up this evening and got these 3 things knocked off, that would be a great place to end, because I would feel really confident about Docker. The reason, or in particular, the Docker image that I want to use for my app. The reason I'm trying to push so heavily on Docker, if you've never used it before, is it's a way to like package all your code together. And a benefit of Heroku is it does that packaging for you. It takes all these build packs and then layers them on and builds, they call their output a slug, which is kind of a unusual name, I think, for an artifact of some kind of bundle of stuff. But they do that work. And if we're moving to DigitalOcean, we kind of need the kind of build tooling done ourselves. So we're going to use Docker, and it's going to create the artifact. And then we're going to use a tool called Kamal to actually do the deployment stuff. The Kamal tool comes from the people behind 37 Signals, or that is the company name, actually, sorry, the people behind Basecamp, who is 37 Signals. And it's their tool for doing metal deploys, basically from a bare machine. But it also works from a virtual machine, which is what DigitalOcean offers. All right, so we need documentation. And the documentation, I have a makefile target for that. Let's see, let's bring it up. So currently, and then I also probably have a place where it gets built as well. This is where it's coming from in terms of how was Heroku doing this. So I looked at the build pack for Python specifically because this the documentation is using Sphinx, and it's help documentation. Documentation, in fact, let's put this in context. So the site that I'm trying to move is the School Desk app. Again, it's a homeschool planning app. You don't need to worry about the details of that. It serves my family and a couple of families like mine. And it's got help documentation, try and explain like what are the concepts here. And this is an actual server rendered page, but when you click to this and you see that slash, well, if you look at the lower corner there, you can see, maybe not with the resolution on this stream, but it says /docs. And if you go over here, all it is a customized version of Sphinx. If you look at Python Sphinx and go over here, this should look, well, not they have a different template, but if you look at the read the docs template, that's basically what I'm using. So actually read the docs is the website, and they have documentation somewhere. Oh goodness, where are their docs? It's funny if I can't find their docs in 2 seconds. I guess they have a different perspective on. All right, let's check out their documentation. All right, so you can see it's not that different from what the read the docs template is. So I customized it a little bit to have my own colors for my app, and otherwise it's using the read the docs template. And I find it to be a very pleasant template. It's got pretty easy navigation. It works well for help documentation. So I need to, the way this is served out of my app is actually designed in the Python code to serve the docs. So it's served by some middleware. I think it's a middleware here. Where's the middleware? Middleware? Where did I put it? Here it is. Okay. So I take the white noise middleware. White noise is designed to serve static files. And I customized it. And I said, I want you to serve more static files than just what is available from the static files that goes through the manage static files command. So that's like more than just the CSS files. There's some extra stuff that I want you to build in. And I wrote up a blog post about this. You can check it out on mattlehman.com if you want. There's a post on how this works. But with a little bit of configuration, you're able to like add in stuff that white noise will respond to. And so by putting in the settings, let's see, I call this more white noise. I gave it a place to pay attention to of where's going to be the files to use, and then where is the output path that the website should be responding to. So it's going to respond at docs / is going to be the prefix for all this stuff, and then the directory where the files are is going to be baster docs build HTML. Okay, so from that, really all we need to be able to do is in our Docker file run this particular makefile target, and what it should be doing is creating the documentation files and putting them in the right particular place, HTML, or it's going to build out the HTML version. And then I did some compression stuff to make sure that the files that are built that live in that directory are also have compressed formats. And that's important because I'm serving this stuff from Python. I want these responses to be fast because Python is really not designed to serve a lot of static files. So I want them to be having to deal with less data over the network if possible. So I think what we'll need is ultimately to call these two things, and we'll get to, this is for the blog, which is a more complicated thing that's going to use Hugo. But call these two things in the Docker file. I think that should be what's required. So let's try that. Let's get rid of this middleware. I think we can keep the makefile itself. I don't know if the Python, if the image is going to have the makefile on it, so that's going to be an interesting thing that we'll have to explore. And we have some Docker commands that we were using earlier, I think, or maybe I was just using Docker compose build to actually do this exploration. All right, Akil, I see your question here. Let me take a look. Well, I'm sorry that you end up in that spot where you're actually not doing anything. That's not great. So if you're looking for an advice for someone who's not a complete beginner, you learned C in college. Okay, no problem on the long paragraph. So it's stupid advice to say just focus on the front end. That's dumb. It's dumb because a front end to what? Like, eventually you have to write a back end too. Okay, so let me back up. Pick a project. Pick something that you want to build. It doesn't have to be, I mean, it could be a to-do app if you want, but like, pick something that you would care about. Like, ideally, something that you would care about. Something that doesn't exist that you're like, man, I would like to have this thing. And try and build that project. And like, I think what you'll find is that the front end back end distinction is pretty garbage. Like, I think it's a false dichotomy, honestly. The way I built this app with Django is my front end are server rendered templates in the back end. Now, if that doesn't mean anything to you, don't fret about that. Maybe you're like new to this stuff. I get it. Like, you may be missing a lot of details. But the benefit of picking a project is that you'll stick with it, ideally, versus academically just learning. I run a meetup here in town. So I'm in Frederick, Maryland, and I run the local Python meetup. And we have some workshops and things where new people come and they ask, like, you know what, I want to learn Python. How do I learn Python? And I think it's the wrong, like, okay, it's noble that you're saying, if I dig at that, I think you're saying, I want to be able to program, because maybe you don't have any programming experience. That's cool. But what I've recommended to those folks over the years, and I've done this many times now, is say, pick a project. Why? And the important reason is we dig into the why. Because if you just learn something academically, then if it gets hard and you're only learning it for academic reasons, unless you are a stellar student and you will power through anything academically, which I think most people are not, you'll just stop. You'll say, like, forget this, I'm done, and not move on. However, if you have a project and your project is twofold purpose. One is to learn programming, and the other is to build something that you care about or can grow to care about. Then what happens when you get stuck on something that's hard with the programming part is that you'll push through that because you care about the project too. And in doing so, in having a different, if your goal then becomes like, I'm not, learning to learn how to code. I'm learning to make something that I care about. And I think that has a powerful effect on focusing your attention on what is important. Because you'll say, like, what do I need to build to make this feature of my website? And then you'll learn that stuff as a side effect of your actual learning. So I think don't worry about the front end, back end thing. Pick a project, and you may not know how to make it right now. Now, granted, you may want to pick a small project to start. Like, you don't need to be building your first SaaS software or something like that. I'll give you an example, like something I teach my son. My son is 12. And we're doing programming stuff, and I want him to have some motivation to keep learning. And he's really big into Pokemon. That's one of his hobbies. He's a big video gamer, and he likes Pokemon. So one of our projects with learning Python, I'm teaching Python, is to make a Pokédex, which if you're not a gamer, a Pokédex is basically an inventory of all of the Pokemon that are available. And so he has this goal of, I'm building my Pokédex. I'm want the thing I want, which is to look at these cool pictures of Pokemon and where they come from and all these facts about them. But then also put it in this programming context. And I think that is a useful way to actually go about learning. So that would be my recommendation, is not get hung up on what am I learning academically? Am I learning front end or back end? Those are not important details. Pick a project, small project to start. See if you can finish it, and you'll have learned some stuff along the way, and then move on to the next thing. So hopefully that helps. All right, so we're going to run some Docker commands here. And we're going to say docker compose build is the command we're going to use. And that should build our stuff. This should all be cached, I think. This first time should be, actually that's not cached, so there's been some stuff since I last ran. So let's get a cache going here, because we're not actually going to modify our apt packages right away. We are going to use, that's interesting. So in the Docker file, we are using UV, and I said no dev. Well, that's a bummer, because in the Pi project, Sphinx, okay, no, this should still work, because we have, you're welcome, Akil. We have Sphinx here, so that should be okay. All right, so we built a Docker image. And there are other ways we could have built this, but we did with Docker Compose. So we've got Docker images, and this is the thing we just built. It's actually large. I don't really like that, but there's not a lot we can do. There's just a bunch of stuff that has to go in here. Okay, so we know as well, actually, let's make sure I'm not ignoring the documentation directory. That's good. So we know that after we have the packages installed, then we should be able to run our makefile. The makefile is going to call Sphinx, which, since it was installed at the system level, should just work. So I think what we want to do is we want to put these commands in here. I don't know exactly the right spot to put these. We'll see. So this is going to be, we want a run command to actually make the documentation. And you know what? We can put this in one layer. This does not need to be two separate calls. So it's going to make the documentation and then add the compressed files, I think. And let's split this up like I have with my other stuff. Kind of clean up the ordering. And I don't need these comments. They're not telling me anything that I can't already see. We're making documentation, we're compressing. I can read that from just reading the line. So the question is, I think there's going to be, we might have to do a modification to the permissions afterwards, but let's take that one step at a time. So first things first, let's run the Docker build command and see if it actually even works. So it hits it's going to do the collect static call, and then it's going to run our new makefile target, which will either blow up quickly or, okay, boo. Make not found, boo hoo hoo. Okay, fine. So make is calling into the docs, it's changing into the docs directory and calling make, but we don't have make. All right, fair enough. So we can instead go into the docs directory ourselves and look at the makefile command and maybe figure out what we should be calling. So if we're running the makefile, then we're calling Sphinx build -m with some options here, a source directory, which is the dot. The build directory is build. Sphinx options are -w -b dir html and $O. Okay, so maybe we can do this stuff ourselves by just calling these things. The question is, how do we change into that directory? Or do we need to change into that directory and call this differently or not? Let's try and do this in a different way. let's call Sphinx build, because again, this should be on the path of the program now that it's been installed from 6 lines above at UV sync. So Sphinx build should be there, and we should be able to run -m, and that $@ I think that's going to be our HTML, the target. And so the source directory is not going to be the dot anymore. It's going to be docs, because we're a directory above when this is being called. And the build directory is not going to be just build, but I think it's going to be docs build, like that. And then the Sphinx options we can replicate here are -w, -b, dir, HTML. HTML. Okay. And I think that there's nothing for the $O variable. Not sure. Let's try it. Worst thing that can happen is we're wrong. Flex static is unfortunately slow. Maybe we should put it above that. I don't know. Oh, hey, cool. Look at that. It's running Sphinx. Whoa, did I just get it? That would be amazing. All right, so then we're going to do what are we going to do? Let's put a new make file, like go in our make file. Or did I already do this? Maybe I did and I already forgot what it is. So there's should be a make file. Yeah, I did. We have a make shell command. So this is going to be able to let us go into the image itself and inspect things. So now we're in the app directory, and if we list this out, whoa, that's a bunch of stuff. Got all the files in here. What I'm looking for is the actual, oh, we've got the volume mount. Okay, hold on. That didn't look like I wanted it to, because there is a volume mount that is actually like putting our current files in there. So there's, I want to see this without those files in it. So that's what we gotta turn off. We try that again. Make shell. Now, if we list this out, you see a much smaller number of files. And we see that the static files are owned by root. I think that's okay. Well, actually, it might. Okay. And let's look on the docs directory. So ls-al docs. So we've got the docs, we've got the build directory, and then we've got HTML. And notice, all right, cool. I think this worked. Because check this out. So we've got, in our command, we said, build the stuff, and then compress the stuff. And then we've got, coming back here, we've got the actual, this is the build directory, which is the HTML, because we specified that we wanted to make the HTML stuff, and then we wanted to put it in the docs build area. So it makes its own like HTML subdirectory. And then if you look in here, you can see that aside from the directories themselves, the individual files, they have two things that go along with them. There's a BR file for Brotli, and there's a GZ file for gzip. And that allows, when white noise is responding to those help requests, we should be able to serve up whatever the browser says I can handle. So if the browser says I can handle gzip, we give it the gzip response. That's white noise knows to look for these extensions and serve them if they exist. So that's good. So I think that this is maybe done. So let's get out of here and try docker compose up. Now notice I'm still continuing to do it without the volume mount, so we should just be depending on whatever our built version of the app is. And we still have to figure out this font stuff, but that's something for later. Let's go to localhost 8000. Should bring us, whoops, We have no table there. That's fine. Okay. Forget that. Let's go straight to the docs. And they're here. So the fact that this is working tells me that I think we did this right. And cool. Great. Let's check that in. We're just missing a database table. That's what happens when we don't volume mount. So the volume mount is looking for a database file and it can't see it because we haven't mounted it. So if we had this like this, it would have been fine. I'm going to leave this commented out though. Actually, I'll come back to that in a moment. So that thing alone should fix one of those issue numbers. Should fix 1203. Say add docs to app image. Fixes number 1203. Ooh, if we don't merge to main though, that's going to be interesting. I don't know if it'll actually catch those. So normally we push the stuff to main and then it happens. So let's do, while we're here, git push. Can never remember the exact sequence. If we're pushing, because I'm usually using like a special GitHub command to say make a pull request. So git push origin, cloud migration. Except I got to spell origin right. But I don't think it's going to do the follow aspect. I think I got that wrong. All right. And then we can come over to the pull request area. And it should say, hey, you've got a PR, like a branch here. This is where we'll keep track of our stuff related to cloud migration. Cloud migration. And I'm going to have to like manually mark off issues because we're not going to get some of these fixes. So this PR captures all the changes that we will use for migrating to DO. We're going to leave main alone so that we are able to hotfix any security issue. Otherwise, main is not getting touched. Okay. So far, we just have a couple of lines in here for that. And then we'll keep track of this stuff ourselves. So we'll say, technically, it's not like done because it hasn't been merged to main, but I'm considering it done. All right, next. Here's where it's going to get a little harder. The previous one was Python. We were already there, but this next version, this next issue is not Python. Oops. Let's leave that commented out because we're going to need that for our testing. And we need to talk a little bit about how this app is built. So if you go to the school desk, oops. You go to the website and you go to the bottom. There are other ways that this is actually linked. And so, because part of it's actually like a product feature. So I have some code in there that I link a certain database table to actual blog entries. And then whenever I want to announce something, and I haven't done it in a long time, I put like a little present icon in the user interface, and so they can like click through and see what new features they're getting. So I want to keep this for sure. because I think it's valuable. So here's an example. Like here's a feature that I added. This was this checklist feature that was requested by one of the users, and it's just like a quick like, hey, here it's available. Clearly, I have not been consistent with this blog because I haven't updated since 2022. But that doesn't mean I want the feature to go away. So this blog is not made with Django. This blog is actually made with Hugo. And Hugo is a static site generator. And it's made with Go, the Go programming language. So the Go aspect doesn't really matter, except that I need to have Hugo installed and be able to use that. And then what I do is, just like we saw with the docs files, where we have the middleware that knows how to serve those files, similarly, there is, let's see, so you can all see it. There is right here, it's looking for a blog output directory, and then it's able to serve those files. So we need to have Hugo run, generate this directory in the image, because if we go back to our shell image here and we look, well, it's incorporating the blog output right now, but it shouldn't be actually. We should probably do Docker ignore on that, because we don't want it from the mount. We want it to be built from the image itself. So actually, let's fix that up now. So the things that we don't want to put in there are blog out, and we want that to be built. Let's do a Docker compose build and see it not include those files, and then that'll give us confidence that the blog output that we actually have built is what we would expect. So new image is done. We can go back in, and because we don't have the volume mount, we should not see blog out anymore. We see blog, which is necessary to actually build the actual content, but none of the output files are there yet. So now it's time to figure out how we're going to do this. So go to the top of this thing. We can see that this image is explicitly made for Python, which has made some of these changes below easy. So here's where we get into a stage where we have a couple of options, I think. One option is we turn this into a multi-stage build. And a multi-stage build is when you have like multiple from. You've got from this image, do some stuff, from that image, do some stuff. And then when you're trying to put it all together, like if this was let's say this was I'm going to pretend there's a Hugo latest. There probably is some image like this. I'm not going to use this. And then we would run the Hugo command to build the site, and it's going to make the blog output, and then we'd and we'd have the output as blog out somewhere in the little directory that we have. That's the idea. Then in the actual final image that we want to build, we would say copy from the previous section, because you'd give it a name as like this. So you say copy from Hugo this blog out directory and put it here. And that's maybe what we want to do. The other option is kind of like what we did with this thing, where we copied an image, and this is a Rust binary, and we just copied the Rust binary into the bin directory of this image. And this is actually pretty appealing if we could do something similar for Hugo. Hugo is different in that it is a Go binary, but it should functionally be the same. So if we could put it on our path, then we can not mess around with having a multi-stage directory and then copying from one to the other. I think I would prefer this approach of just like putting our tools that especially when they're binaries, just put them inside of the one Python image, and it's fine. Like, people are not going to be able to run Hugo elsewhere because of the image and how stuff is isolated, so it shouldn't be a big deal. So let's go look for a Hugo Docker image. And first, before I go to like Docker Hub, Hugo Docker image. See what if something comes up. And I do want to look at a couple of options here just in case that there are multiple recommendations. So Kayla Keg, I don't know how you say that username, has built different variants here. And it looks like there are different tags for the different versions. So there's the other layer here as well, is the Hugo stuff that I'm building. There's a config here. No, this is the wrong. How do I know which Hugo version it is? I can't remember. Hugo build block, was that it? Nope. Don't know what that is. I thought it was the config toml. And this is what I want to fix with this stuff, is like, it's confusing to see like what are the actual files that matter. Don't know. So maybe I'm thinking, you know what I might be thinking of? I might be thinking of my main site. So mattlehman.com is also built with Hugo. And it's under here. I'm thinking of the Netlify toml. So, okay. And that you can see what version of Hugo that's running. So what I actually have is an issue where this is, I must be using whatever is in my Heroku build pack. So I think I need to log in Heroku and see which version we're on. And we're going to try and update to a later version, perhaps. That's not vital, but it would be nice to get it up to date if I can. So let's do this. We'll get out of here, and I'm going to do Heroku login. And I can't show this because it's going to dump out my email address, or at least it will after the fact, I think. So I'm going to put on my secret screen for a minute. I'm hitting Heroku login. It's going to send me to a Heroku web page where I'm going to be asked to log in. I'm clicking the login button, and I'm popping in my Hugo credentials, but I also have to put in a two-factor authentication with Heroku. So I'm doing that right now, and I'm plugging in the 2FA information, and I'm gonna hit verify, and then they'll say like, yeah, you're logged in, and I can close my browser tab. But then on the actual Heroku login, it dumps out my email address in big green letters, so I got to clear my screen. And then I can bring this back. Okay, so then from here, now I'm logged in. So I should be able to say, what I'm looking for is the Heroku build pack information. And that's probably up here, Heroku build packs. Heroku build packs. But it might not know, yeah, okay. Which version? I've got that Roper ZH Hugo build pack. Don't know which version it's building from. So let's see if we can get more information on that thing. Okay, so Heroku build packs info, maybe? I gotta provide a build pack name. Roper ZH Hugo. Oh, this is just like how to use it. Well, shoot. Build packs versions. Ah, man. versions. Whoa. That thing has not been updated in a long time. There's another reason that Heroku is both a blessing and a curse, I guess, is that I'm not really in control of the software here. And if I wanted to, ever wanted to use a new version of Heroku, I don't think I could. So that's not cool. So the question becomes, what have I been building it with? Let's see what's here. Hugo, I don't know that I even have it installed here. Oh, come on. Really? Hugo version. So this is on 1.04. And probably built it here. Oh, yikes. Found no layout file for HTML. You should create a template file. Oh, yeah. So I'm also using like a particular theme in my blog, which I think I just pulled directly into the blog. Didn't I? Maybe not. Hold on. So I have a Git, there's a Git modules here. Oops. Okay. So Git, what is it? What's the command? Is it Git submodules? Is it there? I don't know. So well, here's a challenge. If I'm doing a build, oh, no. Kamal does do the submodule fetch. So as long as I've done that too, then I should be able to build this, which means I should have the actual chunky poster theme there. So if I do an ls on blog theme chunky poster, no, okay, I don't have that. Git fetch submodules, what is the command? Is that the command? Git submodules update. If it's the first time, okay, maybe that will make the errors go away. Now I have a bunch of files that I can actually build from. All right, cool. And then it complains about some Google News internal template. That's fine. The Google News internal template will be removed in a future release. And then some warning. Hugo, blah, blah, blah. Let's go read about it. It's closed. Hasn't been supported since 2010. Deprecation warning. Wait, so did they actually do anything? Just added the deprecation warning. And then okay. They're not actually doing anything with it, it seems. Whatever. Oh, hey, Augustine, welcome. So you are doing manual QA and you want to get into automation. Let me ask you, are you doing manual QA on a website? Or are you doing manual QA on like a full rich client app, like a browser or some kind of, what kind of QA are you doing? I think my answer for you would depend upon what you say. Because I have opinions, but it really doesn't serve you well if, like, you're like totally doing a different kind of QA. Okay, so we've got evidence that this will build on this latest version. Browser. Okay. If you're doing browser QA, you're doing manual stuff. Are you in a team environment, or, well, yeah, maybe that's the next question. Are you working as a team, or are you like on your own? Is this for like hobby projects, or is this for your job? You could say something on that. That would be useful. I'll make some assumptions though for a moment, I guess, until I hear an answer. Let's say you're doing this with a team, and you're trying to get some stuff done. You're doing a bunch of manual QA. There's a bunch of tools you can reach for. The kind of the granddaddy of them, the grandpa of the tools, is Selenium. Selenium is a tool that is designed, as you can see, Selenium automates browsers. And what Selenium is intended to do is give you a toolbox to basically simulate being a user, like a web browser user. Pretend like I'm going to click this, I'm going to click that, so on and so on. And then there are tools that you can use in Python that will let you interact with Selenium. That's one way. Selenium, though, like Selenium's a fine tool. I've used it for a number of things in my career. It's actually pretty handy for automating little simple things too. So maybe that's something you could try, like if you wanted to get some experience there. Selenium is one way. But there are other tools that are becoming quite popular for doing browser automation specifically. One that comes to mind is called Playwright. You can even see the fourth option here is Playwright versus Selenium. So, well, is it easy to use is going to be a question that depends upon your level of experience. And I will say Playwright is not a Python tool. So you would have to learn a little bit about doing JavaScript development or like getting the JavaScript tools, which is not like an overwhelming amount of stuff, but it's a way to go. And the idea with Playwright, like here's an example, I think. No, this is configuration. So they've got some stuff of like, you can test against Chrome, Firefox, Safari, mobile, blah, 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 blah. And then ultimately, you're going to run a test. And so the question is like, well, what test am I running? So they haven't shown that code yet in this example that I could see. So they're like walking you through, install these tools, and eventually you get there. But I want to see if we can find an example of the actual test itself, because this is not useful, I think, until you see what a test looks like. Oh, come on, y'all. Where is a test? Writing test. How about that? How to write the first test. Okay. So it's a little overwhelming at first, I will admit. But you follow their install instructions, and then you create this area where you're going to have test files. And they call them spec files. That just means specification. I don't know, if you're a manual tester, maybe that's a term you already use anyway. And you call these little functions. Just notice they're functions. And some of the syntax is this is also another function, but it's a function without a name. The name would like go here. So this is called an anonymous function. And you can see the way this works is they give you this page object that you can interact with. And you can say, the page is kind of like your portal into a browser. And so you say, page, go to such and such URL. And then you await. But like the way Playwright is intended to work is it recognizes that stuff takes time. And you just have to wait for things to go. And so Playwright tries to find like when is something done when it's navigated. And then the idea with automated testing, if you're new to that, is actually like the easiest way to remember this, hopefully an easy way anyway, is AAA. AAA stands for arrange, act, and assert. Right? Arrange means do your setup stuff. Whatever like preconditions you need for your kind of test setup, you would arrange that. You'd put it in the right order so that you know what kind of thing you're about to test. So that's setting up some code to save some information. And then you act. In this case, the action, they don't have any arrange in this test. The action is going to that website. So that's the act phase of the test. And then finally, you have the assertion phase. You expect something about the page to be true. You are asserting on truth about the page. And so that's what automated tests are all about. It's like basically doing some action, and then on the other side, checking, is it what you expected it to be? So Playwright is a pretty solid tool for this from what I've heard. And Selenium is also a good tool. It's a little bit more raw in how you deal with some of the things, frankly, but I'm sure you can get both. You can get good tutorials for either kind of universe. There are other tools. What was the other option? Playwright versus Cypress is another one that comes to mind. Can't remember which one's more recent. Cypress again is another, I believe it's another JavaScript tool. There's a lot of these JavaScript tools since browsers use a lot of JavaScript. Yeah, so that question about what projects can I do, that part is going to be more on you. Maybe give yourself a little, like, think about something you do in your life that you use on a browser. Like maybe you go to a news site and you're big in, I'm going to pretend that you're a sports guy. You're big into football, soccer, whatever you call it, wherever you're from. And you want to see how your team did. And you know where you would go on your favorite sports site to actually go find that information, latest scores from last night's games. So you could give yourself a mission of like, I know where I need to go. I know that I want to, it's going to take me multiple steps to get there. I got to go to such and such a site, and then I got to go to such a certain page within that site that I have to navigate to, and I want to look for my team and find those links and click that. I don't know. I'm winging it, obviously. So find something small, and just see, like, and it could even be simpler than that. Just find out, like, hey, if you could be successful if you got Playwright installed, if you got it running and made a simple test, you follow that writing test thing, and you go to, the main page of your favorite news site, entertainment site, whatever. Doesn't matter. And make sure that it runs, and then check that there's something on that page. Like, what you would do manually is, if I was a manual tester, and I'm testing GitHub, I'd go to github.com, and I'm like, well, I see, how do I know that I got to the home page successfully? I can see that I have home in this title. Okay, let me write a test that goes to github.com, and do I find, when after the page is loaded, a line that says home? And you can assert that that's true. You'll have gone through a lot to actually make sure you're doing that, because in the process, it's like teaching you, well, can I get the tools installed? Can I write a basic test? Do I know how to run it? And then you'll start very, very quickly becoming more comfortable with those like basic skills, and then you can start to move up to, okay, now how do I do this specific thing? And kind of like my advice that I gave, I don't know if you were on earlier, but I was given, someone who was asking, or was it Akil or Yeah, I think it was a kill. How do I get into development? Like, have a project was the short answer. So you could start with like set up little projects along the way. Like, now I want to see, I want to be able to check this. I want to be able to check that. How can I do that stuff? Read a bunch of the Playwright documentation. And I think you'll find that you'll rapidly accelerate if you give yourself a project and really give yourself objectives. If you're just trying to learn it to be like learning it, you may be less successful there. Hope that helps. Okay, so now what? We've got Hugo. We have got this person's image. I don't know if it's the one that I want to use. Downloaded 20 million times. Pretty impressive. And I used to use Hugo, but it's been a while since it was updated. Oh, is it not being updated anymore? Updated over a year ago. Oh no. Although, is that really that bad? I have not. My current version of Hugo with my site is from 2018, so that's 6 years ago. And the Hugo here is even older. Well, shoot. Hugo Docker images. What is this? How do I get this? Docs, I guess. What are the tags? Latest of what? Hugo mods. Hugo. Is this being maintained? We've renamed this to Hugo mods. All right, let's see what they got. Oh, that's weird. I've not seen this syntax before. Include plus. Well, thanks for subscribing. Glad it was helpful. All right, I think I want to use this. I'm okay with using this guy's image for now. And I want to be able to copy from here. I think. So let's look at the actual like contents of one of these things and see if we can find. What I want to do is I just want to pull out the Hugo binary. I don't care about all this stuff. It's really not important. If we go in here and I want to look for the files that are in the release and see if I can find the actual binary. Also, I'm sure there are tons of apps that are mobile. I don't know about desktop apps, but I gotta believe that there are a lot of, depends on your project, of course, but my guess is that there are a bunch of apps that they build a mobile app as like the front end, and then they just have a back end that's like an API or something like that. In fact, I saw one recently. It was like a really popular, it was like way up there on the popularity list, and it's like mobile only. So yes, it is totally the case that there are SaaS products that are mobile apps. Again, not so sure about desktop apps. I don't think people will do that very much. It's pretty niche to make a desktop app. All right, I want to find a quick way to inspect this, but I don't know how. I just want to copy their Hugo binary. All right, this is dumb. This is totally something that ChatGPT can help. Oh, Serge, I'm glad you're able to benefit from that. I gotta log in here, so I'm gonna put on my secret screen for a moment. Log in. Oh, come on. Log in. Log in. And logging in. Putting in my email address, password. Go. Okay. Logged in. So, how do I run a Docker image directly? I know I've done this a million times, but, well, maybe not a million, because I probably remember what the command line arguments were, but stop. That's not what I want. I want to run a Docker image from an interactive bash shell. How do I do that? This is me being too lazy to think. Like probably the image name. Yeah. Okay. So we should be able to do Docker run IT, and the image name would be whatever we saw. Dude, tag is ridiculous. Surely there's a better tag name than that. There we go. 101. Okay. So it's going to be called Black Egg Hugo 0.101.0 bash. All right, there we go. Just gotta download those images, the layers anyway, and then we should hopefully be able to get in there. Once we're able to get in there, my hope is that instead of really, just give me a shell then. Come on. What? Unknown command bash. That is not okay. You led me astray, ChatGPT. I thought there was a, because I thought that was it. I thought it was a dash IT thing. Maybe I have something in my own history that can do this. Nope. Search for this. Are you kidding me? Wow. All right. There's like a Docker exec something. Like not, I think, oh, that must be, yeah, it's not Docker run. It's exec, I'm pretty sure. It's like not running from an existing image. I want to run bash. Phooey. What's next? No such, okay. I was wrong. It must be Docker run. Try again. Well, let's just give it its my error message. I tried that, and it didn't work. What's wrong? Does not include bash. Defaults to running Hugo. Yeah, I can tell. I did try shell. Boo. So is it really not going to work? Unknown command. Wow. All right. They don't give me any way to look inside of the container? It seems so dumb. What else could I do? I could... There was a tool that I inspected. I did like a inspection of a container last time to find out if this container that I'm building had extra stuff in it or not. And drawing a blank on the name of that tool too. So, one of these existing. Oh, come on. It's got to be one of these. I just don't remember which one it is. Add curl. No. Not that one. No. Okay. So just ask it again. What are tools that I can use to inspect Docker image contents? And I should record this. Yeah. It gave me a list of them. And it gave me the Docker ones first. And then it got into like, yeah, it might have been dive. One of them gave me an alias that I could run. Well, I probably should have it on here. History grep dive. Dive? Nope, not dive. Or maybe I did that on a different computer. This sounds right. Yeah, this is the one. Okay, so then I did an alias here. Let's just put this like in an actual file so we can come back to this. So let's go to the README. Sometimes you just gotta like have a dumping ground for things that are useful. Docker compose. Let's see. Analyzing image contents. Do that. And then we'll come over here and do that. So we'll have our alias for dive, and then we'll do dive on blackegg Hugo 01010. All right, so it's going to pull this stuff, and then it's going to give us essentially like a directory view of the contents here. I don't know why it's pulling that again. Oh, it's pulling the dive image, not the Hugo image. And the objective here is by the time we're done, I want to be able to say, give me that binary out of this thing. So what do we got in here? There's a bunch of stuff. Is it just bin? It's just bin. And there's a Hugo thing in here. Great, we're done. Hugo. Okay. Whoa. Hold on though. 2.1 kilobytes, that can't be right. All right. There's not much in this thing overall. Well, you know what? Let's just try it. The worst that happens is we're wrong, right? Theme of the stream tonight. Just try it. You could be wrong, but who cares? So this should be from hub.docker.com. I think that should be the full path. Or does it even need that if I think maybe I don't even need that if it's coming from this place. So let's do, what was it called again? Kclag? Clackeg. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that. Clackeg. Hugo. Then we want the version 0.101.0, and then it seemed like it was in bin Hugo, and we want to copy that thing to Hugo. I think that's what we want. And if that works, then we should be able to run Hugo after that. So let's try docker compose build and see if it blows up or not. Wow, it just... Did it go right through that? No. It's on UV right now. Whoops. Or what is it doing? No, it's resolving Hugo. Oh, cool. And it went right through. I think it did it. Cool. Okay. So we've got our Docker Compose. Still has the volume mount stuff. Not oh, I didn't save. So that's good. So we go in here and we should be able to make shell. And I should be able to say Hugo version, and this should just work. Oh, phooey. Hugo, it was a symlink? Dang it. Fine. So, try again. Let's look at that dive command again. Maybe now this makes a little bit more sense. Nice search. Control F. Hugo. What is going on here? Did it put it down here? Like, what is this? Whoops. Stop. Seems like it put maybe the binary in user lib Hugo. Like, this is 50 megabytes. This is clearly where the data is coming from. That's a kind of a weird place to put it, but okay. So let's try that. So instead of bin Hugo, we'll do user lib Hugo. Quit out of here. Docker compose build. So it already had that image cached, so it could do that very quickly. And with any luck, that's all that's needed. Should be a static binary. If it's not, I don't know what the heck that image is doing. So this is almost finished. Go back in the shell, and we'll try running Hugo again. And this time, rather than complaining about a symlink or whatever, maybe we'll actually get a real answer. Hugo version. Hey, cool. Okay, so I think we've got the binary ready now. And so I think what that means is we can run, just like here, all we have to do is run Hugo, and it knows how to run the site. Similarly, I think we should just be able to do Hugo, and it should just put it in the build output. So we'll come down here where it has to, importantly, it has to be after it's copied everything into the app area. So our working directory is /app. And we copy all of the contents of the repo into the app area, and then we run these commands on it. So we need to run the Hugo command. So I think what I want to do is I want to run, and we also have to compress the files, which we saw in the post compile here. So we want this blog out thing after it's done. So I'm going to do run Hugo. I think that's it. Then also follow up with compressing blog out, which is the name, which is the output directory path. I think that should be everything that's required there. Then docker compose build, run all this stuff again. Unfortunately, I don't know why it can't really like cache the run layer. And it seems like it ran right through the Hugo things. We still don't have our volume mount. So if we go to the shell, we should see these files now. We got blog out. Blog out. Awesome. And then the non-image files have their compressed files. So that looks right. So I think we're good. So now we can do docker compose up. Gonna make our new container, and we can go over. Nope, that's the real site. That's not the one I want. Off of here. Done with that. Done with that. Done with that, and that, and that. Cool, cool, cool. Great. And then just come to blog. Hey, look at that. So this is running. Previously didn't work. Now works. Sort of. Why is this image complaining? What is this? Inspect. What is missing here? Images, organizing, SVG. Images, organizing, SVG. Why did that fail? We've got clearly some images worked. What? Images, organizing. Okay, hold on. Let's go back to the School Desk app and the real blog. Something didn't pan out right. So expected this little like, whoops, wrong press there. I expected this little like person sitting at their desk, redheaded person, to be here. Thanks, Devin. Something is different about the two, so let's inspect what's going on here. And it's got a different path. So something about the context in which the Hugo command ran did not actually respect the settings. So it built a different path. Yet, what's weird is like this thing, inspect this, why did this work? Blog images, like it did that one just fine. What? Now, this could be a couple things, right? This could be the newer version of Hugo that we're using doesn't work. could be that something about the way this was called in Docker didn't work, and so therefore it picked the wrong thing. Could be, because where is this file? Actually, let's start with that. We're looking for this particular file, which I am the one who put this in here, into this theme. So it's organizing SVG. So we should be able to find this somewhere. Organizing. Blog, content, images, organizing. But if we go over here, it's just a big SVG. And the other stuff that's here, this is the weird part. Like, these are the files that are showing. So what's up with that? Okay. Organizing SVG. There's probably some place where I set this. What? Homepage image. That's strange. Why did this work? Maybe this was actually like a bug in some version, and they're like, we need to actually put this in a better spot. Okay, hold on. Well, shoot. Hugo. Because it's not like I specified any options. If I brought up the build pack, I don't think I specify any particular options. So the path for all of this stuff should be set by some prefix, right? I shouldn't have to modify this thing. Because if I do, all right, one route. If I do this outside of the Docker container, let's say I did this. Let's put it in /blog, and now I run Hugo. And okay, we've got a new version here, but let's run against not the Docker container, but now we're running against localhost outside of a Docker container context. And if I run the blog this way, well, now it's running like this. Well, phooey, what happened? Or maybe I should just stop caring and stop thinking about it. Maybe it's been fine. Could be, it could be that was broken and I never checked on it. And what I'm building with the old version of Heroku, or sorry, the version on Heroku is so old that that's why that worked when I deployed Heroku. So I kind of don't care. Like if I'm gonna get the right answer by switching this, then that's fine with me. So let's do docker compose build to build a new image. Let's try it again. And then we'll have maybe the most challenging task next ahead of us. So okay, so now we've got what? Docker compose up. We're running through the Docker container again. Refresh here. Okay, it's working. I don't care why that change was necessary. It seemed to be necessary. It's fine. So ultimately, where does that leave us? I think we're done with this feature. How many images do I have now? Okay. Seems to be staying about the same. So we've added the blog output to the Docker ignore. That's important because we don't want to accidentally include it while we're building locally. I don't want to keep, got to go back and change the Docker compose to not commit this. That's going to confuse me later if I mess that up. We're copying out Hugo from that other image and just bringing it into our current image rather than doing a multi-stage build. Then we run Hugo to generate the actual blog and compress all the files. We now have a command that we can use as a reminder for how to inspect something. Let's add to that file, and let's go down and say the next thing we want to do is like, what would the actual invocation be? So that would be like black egg Hugo 0.101.0. That's how we called it when we were doing that work. And then we updated the homepage image. All right, cool. So we add those, we commit this stuff, and then we say add blog to Docker image. And this fixes, well, it doesn't, again, this doesn't matter anymore because we have to do this manually now. Oops, no. Cloud migration. Fixes 1204. I want to do push, but it's not going to do, okay. So that was the thing I was forgetting upstream. Set upstream. Again, this is not something I have to remember when I'm using my other tools, which I should just install on this machine. I don't know why I haven't. Not creating enough PRs is typically the problem. All right, so now we're going to have a little bit more code in here, and we can come into this and close this because we've got the thing there. All right, here's the big one, or the bigger one, the biggest one for the evening. It's building JavaScript. And this, I think, I'm almost certain that this will require a multi-stage build process. So I guess we'll get to see both. We'll see, like, we've done the kind of easy mode with just copying the binary you need. Because JavaScript has a lot of files that you don't get a single binary, we'll have to be a little bit more diligent with our Docker file. And that's fine. There's a lot of examples. In fact, let's go ahead and ask ChatGPT. Please show an example of a multi-stage build that builds JavaScript content, then copies that into a Python image. Let it work on that. This is ultimately what we need. So part of my build process is a little not obvious. In fact, let's go clean up. Actually, before we do that, let's clean up this. We don't need this anymore. This was purely for a hook for Heroku. And if the mission here is to ultimately delete stuff from Heroku, I think we can finally get rid of this, and that lets us also get rid of the whole bin directory. Now, I kind of like the bin directory. We might clean that up later and use that, but not right now. And the other bit that we could do later is we could put blog stuff. Like if we go in the blog, it's got all of the structure for Hugo, and we can move that, but we'll come to that later. More focused on getting the rest of this stuff done. So if we look at the makefile, there's a makefile here. We've got somewhere in here. No, we don't. No, we don't. No, we don't. We have a package JSON file. And the package JSON file, it builds a particular node engine here. It expects to have this particular version of Node, and then it's going to run this build command. That's just what the build pack runs. Can I show this? Let me go check Heroku and see if I can show you a build log where it will run this, because I actually want to use this as a reference point. So let me put on the secret screen because I don't know what I can show for a moment. I'm going to go to Heroku, go to the dashboard. Should already be logged in, so there shouldn't be anything sensitive there, but on the way, I don't want to bump into sensitive stuff. And I'm going to go to the not Journey inbox, to the School Desk project, which has a very funky name. And I'm looking for deploy logs under activity. No, not a release log. I want a deploy log. The build log, they call it. Is there anything sensitive on here that I do not want to show? Hold on, let me take a look. No, looks okay. Okay, so we're looking at a build log that I've shown these builds pass in the past, and you can see that it runs these build packs. And so we now have effectively done what the Heroku build pack and the Hugo build pack have done, taking care of those things. We are now at the Node.js build pack. And the Node.js build pack is setting these settings, which we'll want to replicate, well, at least at the very least, we'll want to do the node environment set to production. Because the production setting will trigger to our tools to minify the particular file that we care about. Because what are we doing with this? We're, like, ultimately, this step is about taking our Tailwind stuff and actually generating a CSS file that we'll put into a particular place. In fact, it's going to be put into the static directory of the actual Python area. And so that when we run static files, the Django management command, that site CSS file will be discovered and pulled out of that and tagged with some kind of hash, and then copied into the actual static file output. That is what is actually used for serving the static files. So ultimately, all we want out of this is a single file, which sounds hilarious to me, but that's the truth. So you can follow along here, and you can see it sets up these environment variables, which we'll do in our own settings as well. And then we want to get a particular version of Node. I'm going to initially start with a version that matches 18 here, and then if that works, we'll try and move up to something a lot more recent. Take this opportunity to upgrade stuff. And then you can see what it does is it runs, it tries to restore cache. We may want to do some stuff to improve caching, because that's the node modules directory is awful. And we want to improve caching if we can. And then we will do the build. So it runs npm run build, and our build command is hooked up to this thing right here, which takes as our input the front-end site CSS as the input file, which I can show you is site CSS is just it's a few Tailwind directives, and then takes the front-end Tailwind config, those two things. We'll actually want to copy the whole front-end directory to wherever we're going to put this stuff, and generates this output file to this static site CSS area. Okay, so in the process of doing that, we'll also need to copy into this image the template files, because what Tailwind is doing is it scans through all the template files looking for the things that matter, that actually have attributes that we care about. Because if you don't do that, then it doesn't know what to put in the CSS file. So that's ultimately what's needed. So let's look at what ChatGPT produced and see if it give us a good starting point. So, all right, so it's got us right here, and it gave us a node image. that we can work with. And it created a working directory here. It did copied some front-end stuff. That's convenient. It's like pretty close to what we have. We'll do something similar. And it did an npm install. And then it copied more stuff. It ran the build. And then later on, it will copy from, this is the important part, it copies from this JS build thing and puts it in app static. Okay, so that's kind of the pattern we want to follow. So let's go to our own Docker image, or Docker file, I should say. And we'll say from, and we'll just try and follow their lead, node 18. I don't really care the particular version. We're going to call our working directory app here as well. And we do need to give this a name that we can alias later. So we'll call this the node stage, or node.js stage. Then we want to be able to copy from our current source area. We want to copy the package, these two files, package.json and package.lock.json. So copy package.json and package.lock.json to the current directory, the working directory, so /app. From there, we want to run npm. Technically, I think we want to run npm CI. Nahal, thanks for subscribing. Appreciate that. So npm CI will essentially install packages from the package lock.json, which is more of a lockdown version. So it's just kind of like the same semantics of using. Last time we talked about installing from, well, npm UV sync is installing from the UV lock file. npm CI is installing from the package lock file. So similar concepts, if that translates well for you. If it doesn't, don't fret about it. I'm not going to go into that tonight. So we want to install these things. That's going to create a node modules directory in here that we can then run from. And so we should be able to say, after this, we want to copy in our front-end directory, because that has our configuration stuff. So we'll copy that to front-end. And I think then we also want to copy the templates directory to a templates area, because the config for Tailwind is going to look for this templates directory, as I mentioned. And then we should be able to run npm run build. But importantly, I haven't set the environment variable that we care about, which is going to be node env is equal to production. That way it should minify, ideally, the actual output file. If we don't do that, we might have an example here. So when we run it locally, it doesn't do that. So there should be a file in here. And you can see it's got all these comments in here, a bunch of white space. All that stuff requires transfer. We want, and CSS in particular is very sensitive to this. So we want CSS to load as quickly as possible. So it pays to be super, super small. Okay, so if we stop there, then what would we have? The output file for this wants to create this in a static directory. And so then finally, when we get down here, after the app is done, before we run collect static, we should say copy, and what was it? From? Yeah, from node.js. We want to copy the path of app static site CSS and put that in the static directory that's here. I think that's what we want. So let's try this, see how it goes. how much we got right or wrong. Okay, it doesn't like our casing. It's gonna grumble about something silly. So we can change this to be capital as for the future run. And then what is it doing? Did it run through all that already? Warn, blah, 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 stage. Why did it do that? Or is it working on it? Oh, it can't, maybe it can't proceed until, yeah, I don't think it can proceed yet. Because it's still trying to get all the layers from Node, I think. Yeah. All that stuff is downloading. And this is where I have a crappy connection. So I've got a crappy download rate right now while I'm streaming, and my basement just doesn't have very good signal. So we have to wait for these layers to download, which is garbage. In total, it's a few hundred megabytes, so we'll just talk it out. So what should be happening right now is it's getting the image. We've given it an alias that we're going to be able to refer to it. Got a working directory, and we've got it set for the production mode. This is probably a setting that I could pass in if I wanted to, but I don't feel like it right now. Like the only time I'm going to be building this Docker image is for a production context to test, so I'm okay just hard coding it. Then why did I separate this? Is a question that maybe comes up sometimes. Running this particular command is time expensive. It has to go get a bunch of packages, make sure they're all in the node modules folder. It's just annoying. So you want to run this command as infrequently as possible. And the way that Docker works is that if there are commands above that it can get invalidated because they've changed, then everything below it has to run. So if we had front end and templates up here with the copy, then what would happen is anytime we modified a template and then wanted to build a Docker image, this npm CI command would have to run again. So if we only run npm CI when the packages have changed, that's the optimal time. So that's why we just copied these two files in there, and then everything else can wait until after. So we copy the necessary files, install the packages, then copy the extra files that are going to be needed to do the build stuff, then we run the build command. At this point, the static file should be generated, the CSS file, which we'll then be able to use later on down here at this line. And you can see I strategically put this right in front of collect static so that we know that the site CSS that's coming from the node side gets copied into the output directory that is expected for collect static to operate. And it may not work with the relative path there. We might want to put it in /app/static. We'll see how that goes. But it should be fine because the working directory is still app. And so that should work out okay, I think. So we're almost done with downloading the node image here, and it's going to then download a bunch of stuff on its own, assuming I didn't get anything wrong. It's extracting these things, getting itself going. So now it's running blah, and then it blows up. Not cool. What happened? So we ran npm CI, and it ran way faster than I would have anticipated. Don't know why. So this tells me maybe that npm CI did not do what I expected it to. Could it be that okay, so I've got I think npm CI might only want to work on what are considered actual dependencies, and everything that I've got for this stuff is a dev dependency. So it could be that it just like skipped dev dependencies because it's thinking like you only want to run for your clean final version of your thing. And I think that doesn't really matter for our context. So I think maybe that was the wrong command. Let's come back up here and change this instead to be npm install. And there are changes that I would like to make with this later, because this can still be expensive, and there's a way to cache this. In fact, let's do it right now. The invocation is probably be, how can I mount cache the npm install? So it's a type of cache or something like that. I think we used it. We actually did use it previously. There it is. Line 32 down there has it. So we want something similar here. So we want to have a mount cache, mount type equal cache. And then we want to have a target. And the target is where npm will normally prefer to put all of its cached packages. And that in default location, since this is going to run as root, is going to be root.npm, I think. And then we run the command. We can separate it like that, just like we did with the other one. If I got that right. Yeah, mount type cache, target, root, npm. Great. All right, cool. Didn't really need ChatGPT. It was just good for a confirmation. And this won't help this first time because it has to actually go get these things. But what this should do is it should tell the Docker daemon, when you encounter this stuff, squirrel this away. So for the next time on this particular builder, which is going to be this machine, you can refer back to the same cache directory, and a bunch of those files won't have changed, and npm can actually rely on that and go much faster. Same reason, like if you're doing a fresh clone of a JavaScript project and you do npm install and you're going to populate your node modules directory for the first time, and then after that you do an npm install and it takes like a second or two, for the same reason, because those files are already there, so it doesn't have to go get them again. So we're trying to do the same thing with Docker here. So let's try this again and see if switching to npm install will actually install the dev dependencies. And if not, maybe we need a --dev or something. I don't know. Whoops, Docker compose build. Boo. Why are you failing? What are you doing? The other challenge with multi-stage builds that I haven't figured out is like how to jump to a particular stage. I think there might be a way to like shell directly in to one stage of an image, but it's it's not as obvious. So if we wanted to jump in and say like, well, what happened? That's the next step. So if we do npm install, let's make sure that we don't have to specify anything. Well, I don't see it obviously here. I'm not sure what's going on. So how do I get a bash shell to the first stage to see the state of the files? Intermediate container. Okay, you gotta build a intermediate container. That's a bummer. Oh, right, the target option. Docker compose have a target option? I don't remember. Might have to do it just manually. Fine. Docker build. Target Node.js is the name. Give it a tag of Node.js debug. And we want it to build from here. Why is it downloading this stuff again? What are you doing? Well, that's dumb. So apparently the Docker compose cache is not the same. Or it could be that I specified too generic of a version and they just happened to bump the image while I did this. I mean, possible, not super likely. The other bits to explore here to make sure we're good is the Docker ignore. Whoops. Docker ignore. We have node modules here, but that should be okay. Because again, we don't really want node modules to be from our own image and volume mounted by accident. We want the image itself to build that stuff. Right? Because Docker ignore is about like context that you have when you do like copy commands. I think that's right. So this maybe that could be a source of the problem. The other option here is we could tell there's other things that we could do here, like perhaps the npm install command isn't doing what I think it is. And so there's a way to increase the verbosity of what shows up on the install. So that is another thing to explore. Because it could be that I think it's installing everything, but then it's not. But really, the best way is going to be to build this intermediate stage or target, and then look at it in a bash shell and see, all right, what files did you actually build? You know, when I go in there, it should put me in an app directory. What's available in there? Is it the node modules? Is that there? Does it have the templates that I expect? Run-in files, so on and so on. And what should I be able to play with and see? All right, gotta wait here. I think we're down to the last couple of layers here, thankfully. Unfortunately, one of them is quite huge. Shouldn't be huge, but it's quite huge on a slow connection, I'll say. Once the second to last layer there goes, it should go a little bit faster. And then when that's done, we'll be able to run this with an interactive call. We'll want this part. We've picked a different name. We didn't call it JS build. We called it Node.js. So Node.js debug, and then we'll give it bash. All right, so that's done. And then now we should start cooking on this last layer here. Twiddle your thumbs time. That is a downside with the approach of using Docker. Is that if I'm doing stuff on stream and we're actually like doing deployments and things, we're gonna have to have either I'm gonna have to for the stream like download, do a build and get the latest image early, or we wait, talk, which is fairly okay. Just I think some dead air. If you have any questions, let me know. It's a good time to answer some questions. And I think this will be the last thing that I'm hoping to get done this evening. Because if we get through this, the image will basically be complete. We'll have put in the blog, documentation, and JavaScript. John, hey, welcome. Yeah, that is what I'm doing. I've got a multi-stage build. I should bring it up. So this is my replacement alternative for Heroku build packs, where the output of this should be a single CSS file that I care about, and then I should be able to copy that in. But for whatever reason, when I get to this line, it says that it can't find Tailwind, which is dumb because Node should have installed that. So it could be that it's not running Tailwind. So, boo. Okay, maybe in order to make that work successfully, I need to comment out this line for the moment. Let's do that. We'll run the same thing so we actually get some kind of image out of this. There's that. And then we can paste in this, and we should be able to say Node.js debug and use bash. All right, so what do we have in here? We've got our templates, all the templates we care about, so that looks good. We've got the package JSON. Whoops. Booey. Package JSON. Really? Yes, of course not NeoVim. Package JSON. Vim, no? More? There's got to be something. There no pager? There we go. So we want to run Tailwind build. And if we're running it through npm run, or yeah, npm run build, then it should be prefixing this properly. So the question is, like, what's in node modules? Did node modules not get installed? What? What is this? Find print. Huh? So pretty clearly, the npm install call did not work the way we expected. All right, I'm going to comment this out for a moment, and maybe let's not worry about the mount type, the cache mount, until we can see evidence that this is working. So let's do log level verbose. Probably should have started with that from the beginning. And then when we do the Docker build, oh man, Docker build, it's like there's a way to get plain or something like that. So history, Docker build, grep plain. No, oops. Nope, that was supposed to be a grep. Grep for Docker build, and then within that, grep for plain. No? Oh, I might have done this on the machine. Okay. Docker build help options. It's like not obvious way in order to get it to put out like actual logs. You have to use like a reporter or something like that when you want to see log information. There it is. Progress, -- progress. I want the plain progress, not the fancy one, not the auto. Why is this so hard, y'all? Okay, let's go build. We'll put in progress plain. So now the combination of having the log level bumped up to verbose and the progress plane means that we should just get like a stream of everything that's happening from the npm install. So let's try building that again. What? Up to date. Audited one package. Found 0 vulnerabilities. Yeah, when you don't install anything, of course you don't find any vulnerabilities. npm install. Install log level verbose. Oh. Son of a gun. Stupid volume mount is mounted. So it's seeing the volume mount probably. Yeah. Boo. I think that's the problem. No, 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 no. Lies. Lies. So let's do this. We need dash dash no cache. There's no way that is true. There's no way you're up to date. No way. Okay. Let's go back to our run bash. And here we should be able to synthesize what we should have run. Why? Why are you saying up to date? ls node modules. There should be, okay, we have legitimately a package JSON that has auto prefixer, post CSS, and Tailwind. So at the very least, we should see those things. So we should be able to go, whoops, more. Those things are definitely in the dev dependencies. Do I have to? Okay. I don't think I do. Do I need a flag to install dev dependencies when running npm install? Aha! Look at that. When using node end production, it skips dev dependencies. It jerks. Okay. That is irksome. All right, fine. So we want to include dev and keep log level verbose. I want to see it at least once. No, I don't know that we need to keep the log level verbose afterwards, but surely we can see it once. And I'm going to keep the npm. I'm pretty confident that this must be the fix. So I'm going to put the run build back in there so that we should get the actual CSS file out of it this time. So if we come back here and we're going to do no cache, progress plane, we should see everything, right? There we go. Hey. Okay. Awesome. That's much better. So see the stuff, importantly, see how it says cache miss? Now if we were to update a package, in fact, maybe we should. Hold on though. Well, one thing at a time. Let's get our site CSS file into the final output. and then we'll come back and maybe update a thing or two, because it did complain of like, hey, you should run blah blah blah, update your browser list latest stuff because we're outdated. Okay, I can do that. So cleaning up here though, let's and that actually, you know, maybe the volume mount part doesn't matter anymore because we are copying. I don't know. I'll continue to leave that off for the moment until I'm confident of at least a working version, and then we can fix the different layers. So now let's come back and do a Docker compose build and see how far we get. Actually, before we do that, it looked like this all worked, but let's check it out. So let's do one last check of this intermediate stage on the bash site here, and just do ls on static. And hey, look, I keep doing that. Less is not included on these, but more is. Different pager. And there's our actual CSS file. It is disappointingly not minified. Why not? Why is it not minified? I thought that the inclusion of node-env production would minify it. In fact, let's check Heroku. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they stopped doing that. Maybe there was too much of an assumption and they stopped. Who knows? One way we can test that, actually, is to go to the school desk and look at all the network calls, refresh this, and find the site CSS, and look at the response, and would you look at that? It hasn't been compressing it. Those stinkers. So this is like way bigger. I mean, way is relative. If we check this thing out, it's in total transferred, it was only 6 kilobytes. Should have been, so out of a total size of 33. But we can do better. We can do better. We will do better. What is the option? So npm run Tailwind CSS-H. I think there's like I thought there was like a minify option. Oh, okay, it's not npm. It's npx Tailwind CSS-H. There's a minify the output, which is what we want. So we have an option. I'm really only going to use, so I use the watch command when I'm doing local development. That's when I might want to see the CSS file at its full size. Otherwise, I don't care. And frankly, here's the annoying part is I thought this was doing, I thought the node-env production thing is what would get us minification. But really, it just gave us problems. It just gave us that we had to do this include dev nonsense. So, and then we're not using anything else. We're just building. So all we're building is this Tailwind thing, and we want this one build line. So what I'm going to do is just ditch node-env. That's not what I want. Also, that should allow us to ditch the include dev thing. And then over here, in the actual build command, we can come over to sit here and say, you know what, instead of doing an unminified version, minify that junk. All right, so at that point, we can go back and we can do a new Docker build. I think we'll use the cache this time. It should be significantly faster, I think, if our mount cache stuff worked. And let's see how it goes. Oh yeah, way faster. So all of those fetches There were a couple that it had to do, but most of them were not necessary. This time, well, I should probably do this once with the no cache in order to verify that the node modules directory, it didn't happen to like just keep around Tailwind. Let's try that briefly. And you can see this is where it deliberately has cache misses. So that seemed to work. Okay, let's check out the run. And this time, more static site. This should be like one big wall of text. And it is. And if we do a disk usage on static site, we'll see how big it is. It's 24K. So still not like a massive savings. So it went from, what did the browser say? It said like 33K, 34K, 24K. So it's a 10 kilobyte savings though, and that'll compress a lot. So we'll probably still get some really good compression out of that. So our net result should be like 5 kilobytes or something of what it actually serves. In fact, we'll be able to see that in a minute when we run the full Docker Compose. So now let's finish this off with Docker Compose build. And that should run the full pipeline of the first stage, gets all that done. It runs that. We've moved on. By the end of this thing, it did already do the copy and is moving on. It did the collect static. So very quickly here, we should be able to check out the shell and see how it went once it exports. So then from here, make shell takes us into the app. And we look at this. We've got static. Static has the site CSS file there. That's interesting. Not what I expected. Oh, it should be in the static files, not static file. Not static, static files. So we can see, actually there's two layers of this. We can see that there is the copied file, and let's check the permissions on it. I don't know that it'll matter, but maybe it will. That permission on that file is set to root, which is different from the rest. So we may want to change the ownership of that file as we copy it. Don't know yet. Then we want to check on ls on the static files directory, which is the output directory of doing the collect static call. And so I think it's okay because you can see all of these are root owned. But because they live in an app directory, I think that we're allowed to like read them. I can't remember how the file permissions work on that stuff. But getting down to it, you see ultimately that there is a site CSS file here. And look how, actually, this is actually a great example of what happened. So we have our asset file got tagged with a hash. That's the 7977 that you're seeing here, and then some other characters. And it tells us that it's 22,553 bytes. We get a good example of what gzip versus Brotli compression does. So the gzip version is 5,079 bytes, so 5 kilobytes. And then we see that the Brotli version is 4,398, so 4 kilobytes. So that's the optimal state is that the browser can receive is a 4 kilobyte file that will represent our site CSS. Now, we have this image built. Let's check, like we've got the volume mount turned off, and we've got our site CSS, so we should be able to do Docker compose up. Whoops. Type it correctly though, Docker compose up, and that gets our image running. And then we get over to localhost. Oh, we're not going to have a database though, so it's not going to work. Yeah. It can't see the database. Boo hoo. That's annoying. because what's happening is we want to see a database, but we can't. So it's almost like we need to volume mount just the database file to make this work. Maybe I'll do that. So let's do, what is the file? The file is at, is it this one, or did I have one in the project directory? Where did we end up writing it to? Okay, it is at the actual root. So we want to do volumes, and then have, let's see, when in a production mode. It's kind of the scenario here. And then we want that to have the DB, the local DB SQLite 3, and we want to put that in the app as DB SQLite 3, just that one file. Okay, like not volumenting the whole directory, just putting the one database file in there. So now if we stop our process and do docker compose up again, so all of the actual like extra files that we have should be not included except for our database file. And is it gonna work? Okay, it did work. It took a really long time for some stupid reason. But it worked. And we should be serving from the actual static files that we have. So if we refresh, it's serving the full one. It's not serving the compressed version. Don't know why. Why are you not serving the minified assets? Maybe it's in, oh, it might be because it's in debug mode. I bet that's it. I bet it's in debug mode. Where's it getting its environment from? Getting it from the environment variables in the end file. All right, let me quickly turn on secrets here. I'm gonna go to the environment file, and I'm gonna turn debug off. I've turned it off, and bring this back. Oh, come on, come back. Here we are. Then we'll go back to here. We'll restart Docker Compose. Now we should see, we might complain about allowed hosts. We'll see. Why are you still serving? That's not cool. It's serving the wrong file. That's going to be something that we'll want to verify later. When we actually are serving this on a real domain, we want to make sure that it's serving the minified assets. Doesn't seem to be doing that, which is bad. It's actually really bad because it means that, what does it mean? It means that the like cache busting is not going to work. So if it's serving this thing and doesn't serve anything else, if we ever change the site CSS file, then somebody who has this old thing having it cached, it's cached for probably a long time. Cached for, well, this, we've got disable cache on. The link reference in the template should be a static tag. Good question, John. So if we go to the base of the template, it should be using the static tag. So if we find site CSS in here, it's using static. And so the static tag with the middleware, when it's in a production configuration, should be using the hashed version. And I think we saw that when we were looking at the actual like homeschool site. See all these things? Like they're serving it with the hashed stamped version, 8.2.12 CEE FEE blah 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 here. So I know it works on the Heroku site. The question is, why is it not working when debug is off on the app, and collect static has run. So that's confusing. So I'm going to make a note, actually, for our little migration milestone. And we'll say confirm that static assets are using the hashed version on the production site. For some reason, currently only see the regular assets in the Docker image, even with debug off. Yeah, John, I can. That's a good call. Maybe I need to refresh the page. So let me do that. Let me refresh one more time. I do have disable cache set here. Yeah, it's definitely pulling. Just refreshed. It did a full get on it, and it served that. So the manifest. I don't know. The manifest didn't go through. Something didn't happen right. Not cool. That's gonna bug me. All right, let's take a couple seconds to look at this and figure out what should have happened. So running from here, we stop running from there and make a shell in here. If we go into the static files area, there should be a manifest. I forget what it's called. I thought it was called manifest. Static files.json. Okay. So this thing is supposed to like be the translation layer, or if one of the things in here, if we find it, site CSS, it should be in here somewhere. Oh, is it not in here? Well, that could be telling. We have grep. Yep. So grep site CSS in static files JSON. Can I just not see it? It could just be that I can't see it. Where are you? Yikes. Is BI installed? Gosh, there's no editor. It's all in one line too. So, oh, there it is. Okay. So it's here. And we saw the asset being tagged. So we knew that it is here with that asset ID. That all adds up. So the question is, why is it not using the manifest? What's going on? I think I know. I think it's because I'm being dumb. Makes sense that I'm being dumb after 3 hours of streaming. Okay, in our example, let's look at... There it is. So we have a default file storage listed here. And if we go to the project settings, we're only using, white noise. No? We have middleware. File storage is for something else. Sorry, that's for... Shoot, I thought I had it. That's for like storing files on S3, so that's different. My bad. We have the white noise middleware. It's there. When should it be active? Is there something in our settings that is causing that not to run? And how do you validate that? So I'm looking at the example settings, so this is not the same thing you would see, the exact same thing you'd see in the env file, but very close. And I don't know that it's actually in here. I think the middleware is just designed to be like, once debug is off, it should just run in its like manifest mode. Oh. File storage. Yeah, it's just it's supposed to run the compressed manifest static file storage as the backend. And then the file storage is the what I was talking about, S3. So this is strange that I would have fully expected that to run. All right, so it's a problem for another day. I don't really have an answer now. White noise seems to be ignoring the debug setting. And actually, I guess one more thing we should confirm is like, am I in fact not on the debug setting? So if I do a bunch of gobbledygook, whoops, then really nothing. It shouldn't give me a debug page, right? It should just say like, no, 404. Ah, it's giving me a debug page, so it's actually running with debug. What? Why are you running with debug? That's not cool. That's even more concerning because I definitely changed the env thing. Why are you running with debug? Is it using this env example as a file? All right, I'm going to go back to secrets for just a minute. At least I feel like I'm sane, that, you know, we're on the right path. All right, debug is definitely off in this. And let me take a quick look at this, see if there's anything that I can't show. I've got those test keys and stuff that I left in here, and I probably shouldn't share them. Are they in the example? Yeah, they're not in the example file, so yeah, can't share them unfortunately. But you can take me at my word that debug is definitely listed as off in the env file. It looks like this, off. So all I can gather then is that maybe Docker Compose up is using this example file as well. Maybe. Where's it getting the environment from? All right, let's dig in. I want to figure this out because I don't want to create another issue out of this. I want to like have some confidence that this is doing the right thing and we can call this done. So let's go over here and say, what do we need to say? Where, oh, or maybe did I source debug? Here's something dangerous, grepping my environment. Debug. Nope. Where does Docker Compose get environment variables from? All right, I don't have it in the Docker Compose YAML. That's not there. We have the port, that's it. And env file. Shell variables. a separate env file. All right, let's test our little, my best theory is that it's somehow reading from this env example file, in which case that's not cool. We got to rename it. We'll change that to off and do Docker compose up. That would be like 2 places that we'd have to modify every time we want to turn off settings. It would be just so dumb. Refresh. Still running with debug. What? Because it's like not even supposed to, it's supposed to default to false. So it tells me it's getting a value from somewhere. How do I list the environment that Docker Compose has? Oh, I could go, yeah, go into a shell and figure it out that way. So we could do make shell, and I got to put on secrets because it's going to dump out all the keys that I just said I can't see. Or you know what? Here, actually, never mind. I could do end, and then be careful. I'm going to grab 4. What? All right, I'm going to do it where I can see the whole kit and caboodle. So, well, this doesn't see much of anything. That's all this sees. So maybe this is not the same as what Docker Compose up sees. Very weird. So I've confirmed that debug is not in my actual host environment. I can try, let me try this Docker. That's going to be the same thing we just saw, I think. So I got to be careful. So I'm going to try this. Web service is not running. Okay, so I'm going to do Docker compose up in one tab, and it's running web. Well, it might not be calling it web. Yeah, it's the same short list of variables. So did I screw up my debug settings? Maybe. Which would be really foolish if I did. Debug, false. Oh no. Oh no. I think maybe I switched to environs and it doesn't respect off and on as options. I bet that's it. So what's happening this might be what's happening. What's happening is off is a string. So, you know, Python, right? Bool. What? Python 3? There you go. Crazy that there's no Python. Bool. Off. True. Right? It's bad news. So, shoot. Environs. Let's see if it's what environs does. Go back here. The following are typecasting methods of env. So bool. How do you do bool? Or what values are respected for bool is really the question. default false. I did have a default of false. That's just what the second keyword argument is. And it depends on .env. Python dot. All right, so maybe that's how it's getting its values for how to read Boolean. No. It's doing the casting. Don't get confused. Let's go in here and look at the code, which is all in a single file. Not judging, but maybe I'm judging a little bit. And let's look for bool. Bool type. Bool. Required. It's going to be everywhere. Preprocess. Blah, blah, blah. Field to method. MA fields. Cool. What the heck is MA fields? MA. Marshmallow. So marshmallow is what it's doing for its serialization. It might be a marshmallow choice. Python, marshmallow, bool, boolean. Talk to me. Values that will deserialize to true if an empty set falsy. I feel like it's like a bad choice if they don't do something about that. All right, let's just try it. Let's switch it to so that we can confirm this. I think there's a way that we can confirm this has nothing to do with Docker. If we just run uv run manage shell, and then from Django conf import settings, and then do settings.debug, it's going to be true, probably false. Well, crap. Really? That was unanticipated. What is it doing? What is it doing to my environment where it would put in true on the other stuff? Like if we run make and run this locally, it won't run because it's saying I'm trying to run from static files and I can't. And we weren't seeing that on the image, but that's to be expected because static files was there. Well, I am stumped at the moment. So it tells me that off at least seem to serialize to mean off, which is something I think I tested in the last stream. So like if this is false, leave that as on. I'm going to go back and I'm going to update the actual env file from off to on. And whoops, just about to show that. That would have been a mistake. And then over here, we'll do, instead of doing shell, we'll do shell plus. That should save us an import. And then we could do settings.debug. That should now be true. Okay, so, all right, so what do we know? We know that not in the Docker Compose universe, that the environment variable, the env file seems to work, right? It was off, saw it as off, I told you I changed it to on. Can't show you the value, but I changed it to on, and now it's showing as true. So that tells me that environs is behaving as expected with off and on as working variables to flip the different scenarios. And then we jump over to Docker Compose, and it doesn't work. Why? One possibility is that it's baking the environment variables in, and from whenever it was built, and that was set to be on at the time, and we're not providing a new value here. Could be, here's another thing it could be. Let's try this. But it would have gone to false. Oh, I have another idea. I think I got it. Make shell. If we do an ls, there's an env file. All right, I'm gonna secrets mode this guy for a second. I'm gonna do a more on env. Debug is on, so it's got. This is not volume mapped. Whoops, can't show that. There we go. Not volume mounted. So it was whatever we copied in to that file at that time, which means we have to get that the heck out of here. That has no business being in the Docker build. No business at all. So come on over to Docker ignore. We should absolutely be putting .env in there. Okay. Now let's finish this off. I want to prove that this works. So we're gonna do Docker build, Docker compose build. We've modified the Docker ignore cache, so hopefully it runs through stuff. Aha! Great. Okay. So we know that what do we know? I don't want to include that. How do we do this? How do we do this so that we can want to do this build, and we want to build this right, and maybe this won't matter long term because Kamal can do this for us. But there are going to be these settings that we have, and if we don't, I'm running out of coherent thoughts. Sorry, y'all. So if we ignore this env file, we got problems. The problems are now the environment is looking for some stuff and it's not there. So the choice is we run a Docker compose build and we give it this stuff. So I'm sure Docker compose build has an option somewhere. There's an ability to set values that we care about. So we could set a junk value, for example, in the actual service config. And that way, if we did this in like the production mode, we would use those env values when building, and then we wouldn't use the local env instead. I don't know if I like that. It means we have to configure a bunch of extra environment variable values, but it does at least give us the clean clarity here. All right, I think I think knowing that I know what the issue is, I don't think I need a solution right now. Do I? Because we haven't seen these static assets work, but I'm like 99% sure now that it's just because debug was set to true when it should have been set to false. So let's leave this issue. Okay. Let's say we were including .env in the image build, and it was set to. Oh, I know an easy way to check this. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Gone 3 hours, but I'm confident of a quick way to check this. We will remove this for a moment. We're going to build with the volume mount. So we'll put that on, which will include that env file that we have. But what I'm going to do is before I build, I'm going to go modify the file and set the debug setting to off. So let's go over to secrets mode. I'm going to go into the env file. I'm going to set debug to off. It's now off. I'm going to bring this back. And now we can go and do docker compose build. And yeah, docker compose build. It's going to copy all the app files in there, including the file we just modified. So it's going to run the rest of it. And after it gets through this, then I will, yeah, it's pretty much done. Over here, now I can turn this off for a moment. And we can, man, this is quite a dance, but we'll get it. We will go into the shell. So no volume mount, but there is an env file right here. I'm going to put on secrets mode. I'm going to do more env, and debug is off. You can take my word on that part. Bring this back. Finally ready to check this thing. Let's go back to the configuration. Well, actually, get out of here. Go back to the configuration. Turn on the database. Make that available. So now when we turn this thing on with a docker compose up, it's going to use the env file, but it's going to use the env file that has debug off, right? And so coming over here, this should give us now just an actual, not found page, which is good. That's what we expected. And immediately, look, we also get confirmation that it's using the tagged assets. That's great. We don't have to create a new issue anymore. We know exactly what the problem is. We've kind of created a new problem for ourselves here. So I got to think about a way to record this. So I want to basically finish with saying we're stopping this. We're going to go into the Docker ignore. We're going to add the env thing. It's important that I don't include that with the actual build process. I want to be able to ensure that that file is not present. There will be some challenges here. Okay, some of these challenges will go away when we start using Kamal. Right now, the problem is manifesting because we're using Docker Compose. Kamal is different in how it runs. Kamal, which we haven't covered in a couple of streams, but Kamal actually builds these Docker images for us. We're using Docker Compose as a quick way to iterate on this and test this out, because Kamal, its default mode is build the image and then immediately push it to a registry, which I wish it didn't do that. I wish it would just say, if I want to just build it, let me build it. But the difference is, between the two, is that Kamal uses Docker build X. And then what it will do is it does a clone. It only builds what you've actually committed. So it's already more pristine compared to what we're doing here with Docker Compose, which will allow us to clearly add whatever. So it does basically goes into a temporary directory, and it does a git clone of that. It does a git clones that, and it does the submodules too. So it'll get my Hugo theme and all that stuff. All that stuff will be set up properly, but it'll be pristine over there. And then it does a Docker on that. And in that universe, the .env file won't exist. So that's okay. When it comes to time to do the deploy, Kamal has tools to take the env file and put it on your server. And then when it does the actual app startup process, it will look for that env file and then link it into the image using some particular Docker flag. I can't remember which one. So I think this is only a problem that we've created for ourselves because of Docker Compose, and it should clear up after that. So I'm feeling pretty good about where this is ending. We are going to put in, like I realize I'm going to leave this in a broken state with Docker Compose. So maybe we want to say find some method of building with Docker Compose without env. We were accidentally including env in the build output. Now that is ignored with Docker ignore. Oh my goodness. But that creates new problems because the build fails because of missing required env parameters. Okay, so that's our challenge to deal with in the future. However, that gets us, we're pretty much, I think where we landed with this is we're done with this. We saw our assets, the asset, the CSS file, all of that work for the last hour was just to get one single CSS file put in the right place. And so we did a multi-stage build here, just like quick review of what we did before we wrap up. And while I'm doing this, please leave me a thumbs up, subscribe, whatever. There's tons of ways to pay me if you want to. I've got books and things that you can read on my website and all that jazz. But that would be a big favor. Just give me a like, because it's awesome. So we are doing this multi-stage build. We're copying in our necessary package stuff. We are doing an npm install and saying forget CI stuff because we don't want, I guess we could have still used CI here since we're no longer using Node-end production, but who cares? I certainly don't. This is a one stage in another stage and doesn't really matter that much to me, especially because I will rarely change the package JSON, so it's fine in my point of view. Then we copy in the actual front-end configuration files and the templates that are needed in order to scan this, all the template content and generate what CSS attributes are actually required. Finally, then we run the npm build, which runs Tailwind and generates the site CSS file and puts it in the right place. And then from that, we copy in that one particular file into the static directory, and we're hunky-dory after that. Then we've got, we remove this post-compile thing, which is now done. Since we made the decision earlier in the stream is we're going to work from this cloud migration branch until we're like ready to do the whole migration over. We've modified our little volume mount here. I should switch that over so that we're sticking with the regular volume mount and we're not using it in a production mode. I kind of want to commit it in like a workable state. So we've got this new thing where we can, when we want to run with the database, we can. This, I bet, could be done better. I bet we could do this. I bet we could do this with like passing in a volume flag from the command line and not putting this in the config file, but it's okay. And then we minified this because the production thing that I thought was working actually wasn't. And so we learned that the real site is not actually minifying static assets. It's not a huge loss. It's about, looks like it was about 10 kilobytes, but good to fix it. So let's commit this stuff and say handle CSS generation with JavaScript. And that fixes number, what was the number? 1205. Okay, then we'll push this up and we can go in here. So we'll have this build that's going to run. So our little diff is getting bigger, migration is growing, and that closes this issue. Okay, so the next stream, which should be next week, I don't think I have anything pressing before that, we'll get into this doozy here. This is actually the riskiest part of this migration in my mind. Is currently I have a Postgres database on Heroku. I want to convert to SQLite. The reason is because the Postgres database is all of 37 megabytes. I don't have a ton of data in there, and it just the way the nature of the application will never create a ton of data. Unless it just goes gangbusters and there are a million people, but I don't see that happening. So I want to convert to SQLite because I think it'll be a lot easier to maintain. It'll also be a lot more performant because it'll be like a direct memory access and using function calls within the process when doing queries. So stuff like n+1 queries will virtually go away, which is an amazing side effect of SQLite. And we should have plenty of write performance out of that. But I need to de-risk this by figuring out how to do this conversion. I've done some basic searching, and I don't feel great about the answers right now. So this will all fall flat on its face. Well, that's not totally true. Okay, the alternate. If for whatever reason SQLite does not pan out, I could put Postgres in a Docker container. And what I've seen suggested that some people do is they will run on the same machine a Docker container that's the app and a Docker container that's Postgres. And then what the key thing with the Postgres Docker container is to have a volume mount of the data. And so then you have those two processes talking to each other. And since they're talking over a local host, or you can even put it on a Unix socket, they can go really fast. What's faster though is not even dealing with a Unix socket. Just I think it should be faster. It shouldn't be the same. I believe it should be faster. Is just using a SQLite file and having an open file handle and letting the library that is actually in process talk to that file handle. I think that's going to be faster than a socket for a bunch of reasons. But I would prefer to be able to switch to SQLite. And we need to explore, I don't think there's any wildly complex data types in my data, but I want to be able to explore that. And so that's going to be interesting because I would love to be able to explore with real customer data and like pull down the real, because Heroku gives you commands to actually pull down a database and have a copy. But I'm very wary of that because I'm talking about real customer data and I don't want to be sharing. I mean, that's none of your business. It's barely my business. Like I don't want to look at that stuff unless I absolutely have to allow people to have their privacy and trust that I'm respecting that. So it'll be interesting. Like maybe we can synthesize a Postgres database that is representative. Maybe we can do something. I got to figure that part out. But I do want to go through the process of figuring out how do we actually do this conversion. Because what's going to be really important is that when I do the migration work, I'll have to have this down pat of like being able to convert Postgres, do whatever fiddly bits to get it right, get it started up again, and then run it on a machine. And then at that point, I need to be able to test and like, I don't know, talk to my wife and stuff and say, does this match up? Does this look like what you see over here? I can do some of that myself because I have some admin tools that will let me hijack a session and look on their behalf. So I could do some inspection as well, but there's some like exploration there. So this is the big topic. It might take us a while. It might turn out to be really easy. I don't know, but that's what we need to explore. And then we got to get into some of these other topics about like there's some cron jobs that I have for essentially background work. We got to figure out how to make that work. This is maybe where we introduce more of Kamal because Kamal is going to have a different its own opinion about how to do cron and some of that stuff. So I think the lion's share of the actual application is now kind of wrapped up with building on these extra layers. And it's more about the ecosystem around the application, which is a cool stepping stone. So thank you all for joining in. Hopefully this was informative. It went quite a bit longer than I thought it was going to, but I'm glad some of you are here to check it out. If you learned something, please give a thumbs up, and maybe I'll check you again next week. Take care.